The boy just accidentally squirted ketchup on himself. He turned and was horrified to see his mother was pointing a camera at him. He quickly asked his mom to delete the video, and Daisy agreed to her son's request. But just as she was about to delete the video, she accidentally pressed the rewind button. In an instant, everything around them suddenly started to play in reverse. Time actually went back to the moment her son picked up the ketchup. Daisy snapped out of it and looked around in fear. She rushed to stop her son's action.
Didn't you just squirt the ketchup on yourself?
But Mike looked completely confused by his mom's words. Daisy tried hard to recall what just happened, and attempted to explain it to her son, but Mike still looked totally puzzled. Daisy then let out a sigh of relief, thinking maybe it was all just her imagination. But their strange conversation caught the attention of a nearby cop. Daisy felt a wave of unease. Soon the two of them left the restaurant, but the uneasy feeling only grew stronger as they drove onto the highway. To help his mom calm down, Mike turned on the car music and stepped harder on the gas. But Daisy still felt uneasy, so she told her son to slow down. But Mike picked up the camcorder, wanting to record his mom's anxious state. Just then, a piercing siren suddenly came from behind the car. Mike immediately pulled over. At that moment, Daisy reminded her son to stay calm and be polite and cooperative with the officer, or it could cost him his life. Mike smiled and rolled down the window, only to see it was the same cop they met at the restaurant. Daisy explained to the officer that she was taking her son to college, but the cop seemed hostile. He asked if there were any weapons in the car. Daisy quickly smiled and said no. Then the officer asked Mike if he knew why they were pulled over. Mike answered with restrained frustration, "It's because of speeding."
Since you admitted it, I'll let that go. However, you were operating a handheld device while driving a motor vehicle.
But right after he said that, the officer noticed the camcorder in the car. He questioned them if they were filming him, then angrily reached in to grab it. In the chaos, Daisy accidentally pressed the rewind button. Time began to reverse again. Everything around Daisy played backwards. When she came to, she realized she was back at the moment her son picked up the camera. Seeing his mother in pain, Mike put down the camcorder. Daisy anxiously asked her son where the cop went, but Mike looked completely lost. Clearly he had no memory of the rewound timeline. Daisy now felt even more uneasy. She quickly asked her son to stop the car, then got out with the camcorder to check around. But right at that moment, the police car showed up again. Mike asked the cop for help, thinking his mom might need medical attention. But Daisy panicked even more, because the officer who got out of the car was the same one from before. Instead of helping, he mocked them with sarcasm. He ordered Mike to leave the highway immediately. Mike argued with him in anger. Then the officer suddenly drew his gun. Seeing this, Daisy quickly hit the rewind button again. Sure enough, time rewound again, but this time Daisy went all the way back to the restaurant. She quickly looked around and saw the officer also sitting nearby eating, staring at her and her son with a look of disgust. Daisy snapped out of it and quickly urged her son to leave. She decided to get out before the officer finished his breakfast, hoping that might help them avoid the cops' pursuit. Daisy rushed her son into the passenger seat, carefully drove onto the highway, and cautiously controlled her speed. Then halfway there, she suddenly made a sharp U-turn, cut across a field and drove onto another road. The feeling of unease lingered in her heart. She hoped this new path would change their fate, but Mike was confused by his mom's actions. He had no idea what she was talking about. After driving far enough, Daisy couldn't take the stress anymore, and decided to find a motel and take a break. She hoped the rest would also throw the cops off their trail. Lying in the motel room, Daisy finally relaxed a little. Just then the TV started showing the lottery numbers. Daisy got a sudden idea. She hit the record button on the camcorder. After the numbers finished, she pressed the rewind button again, and went back to the start of the live broadcast. Daisy smiled and made a bet with her son. If she could predict the winning numbers exactly, then he would have to listen to everything she said from now on. But Daisy knew deep down that the bet was just a way for her to escape reality for a moment. Mike was shocked that his mom could say the exact winning numbers. Just as things started to lighten up, a knock suddenly came at the door. Mike opened it, only to find that same cop standing outside again. Daisy instantly tensed up. The officer said he got a noise complaint about their room and asked for their IDs. Mike felt offended and refused to hand them over. Daisy quickly turned on the camcorder just in case, but the cop got worked up again when he saw it. He demanded she turn it off, and even tried to grab it by force. Mike tried to stop the officer's rough behavior. The officer pulled out his gun again. Daisy immediately hit the rewind button. Everything returned to the restaurant again. Daisy gripped the camcorder tightly, watching the cop eating nearby, her heart filled with despair. They seemed to be trapped in a terrible loop, unable to escape the cops' pursuit no matter what. Daisy decided to take the initiative, to try and break the cycle. She picked up the camcorder, and walked straight to the officer's table, trying to calmly introduce herself and her son, and thank him for keeping the area safe. Daisy tried hard to leave a good impression, hoping the officer would let them go. Sure enough, when the officer heard the praise, a smile appeared on his face. Daisy took the chance to chat casually with him. This time the officer seemed friendly, and even said goodbye after finishing his meal. Daisy finally breathed a sigh of relief, thinking they were finally free from the officer. But as she turned to leave, she saw the cop was still in the restaurant, and suddenly called out to her. Daisy's heart skipped a beat. She silently prayed he wouldn't cause more trouble, but the officer asked if the luxury car outside was hers, and demanded she explain where it came from. Daisy forced herself to stay calm, and explained. She bought the car with money she earned through hard work. Then she pulled her son and tried to leave, but just as Daisy was about to get in the car, the officer called out to her again. Daisy completely lost hope. No matter what she did, she couldn't change the ending. The cop would eventually kill her son. Daisy decided to take the bullet for her son. She purposely provoked the officer, hoping he would shoot her instead, but Mike was worried about his mom's safety, and ran back to the car, to look for the proof of purchase photo, to prove the car was legal. At that moment Daisy's world collapsed. Fear washed over her like a tidal wave, drowning all her reason. The camcorder fell to the ground, and Mike lay in a pool of blood, outside the morgue. Tears silently streamed down Daisy's face. She couldn't accept this cruel reality. Then the doctor walked up to her, and asked if she wanted to identify the body. Daisy's voice trembled, but she begged the doctor to help her find the camcorder. The doctor didn't understand, but did as she asked. Daisy stood before her son's body, overwhelmed with grief. She clutched the camcorder tightly, praying it wasn't broken. The camcorder was her only hope. Her hands shaking, she pressed the rewind button, and a miracle happened. Daisy and Mike were back in the breakfast diner again. Daisy was overwhelmed with joy. She grabbed her son's hands, but when she looked up, she saw the officer hadn't arrived yet. She realized they had gone back even earlier this time. Daisy quickly took Mike away from the dangerous place, but fate didn't seem to favor them. Just as they were about to walk out of the diner, the cop suddenly appeared in front of them. Daisy's heart jumped into her throat, but to her surprise, the officer didn't give them trouble, and even politely held the door open for them. Daisy and Mike seized the chance and escaped the restaurant, but the fear was too overwhelming. She told her son everything that had happened. Mike was still young, but showed amazing calm and intelligence. After thinking briefly, he came up with a workable solution. Maybe the road they had never taken was actually the safe one. Daisy thought back on their previous route. There was indeed a fork in the road. One led to Mike's college, the other to his uncle's place. Before everything happened, Mike had wanted to visit his uncle before school started, but Daisy had cut ties with her family, and refused to go to her brother's home, so they chose to go straight to school, only to fall into this terrifying loop. Daisy realized, maybe going home was the only way out, so this time she changed direction, and drove down the road she hadn't taken in 10 years. She reunited with her brother, and he didn't blame her. Instead, he offered comfort. Daisy told him about the camcorder's ability to rewind time, and warned him that Mike would be killed by the officer. She begged her brother to help them escape the loop. He believed her without hesitation, and decided to personally take Mike to college. He then pulled out a map, and planned a hidden route, a path they used to play on when they were kids. But as soon as they left town, the officer came after them. They followed the route through remote alleys, and even crawled through dark underground drains. After a tense escape, they finally lifted a manhole cover, and came out right at the entrance of Mike's college. Just as they thought the nightmare was over, sirens suddenly blared again.
You three, stop where you are.
Hey, what are you doing coming out of there?
The three of them ignored it, and walked faster toward the school, but the officer drew his gun again. The uncle stepped in front of the barrel. Then more officers arrived. The cop smirked with contempt. Daisy nervously raised the camcorder, and hit the record button. The students nearby also raised their phones to record the officer's abuse. As the students pushed forward, the cops got flustered, and slowly lowered their guns and started to back away. The officer who had been chasing them had no choice but to holster his gun. This time Daisy finally broke the nightmare loop, and Mike walked confidently into his college. 10 years later Mike had a family of his own, and a daughter too, but Daisy still kept the camcorder by her side, as if it was the last defense for protecting her family. For 10 years she never relaxed, but one day, her granddaughter picked up the camcorder and played with it, then accidentally dropped it on the floor. The camcorder shattered into pieces. Daisy rushed over, trying to put it back together, but it was no use. Mike held his mother's hand tightly, and told her to let go and live her life. After a brief panic, Daisy finally took her son's advice, and let go of 10 years of tension. But just as Mike stepped out the door, the familiar siren from 10 years ago echoed once again.